Welcome to Spotlight Television. This is Tom Hegna. I am your host today. We're going to focus on the Boss Retirement Blueprint. I'm very excited about our guests today, Ryan and Tyson Thacker. They're in the Western United States. They're the authors of the Boss Retirement Blueprint. They're also the founders of Boss Retirement Solutions, a $2 billion financial advisory firm. They've helped thousands of families around the country do better with income, managing their taxes, and living a happy and rich retirement. Look, you weren't always a $2 billion firm, so maybe share with us where this all started.
Well, Tom, thanks so much for having us here today. And you know, you're right. We have a retirement crisis happening in America, and Tyson and I, as what they call us the retirement brothers, we've seen this for a long time. In fact, we originally come from the banking industry, and one of the things that we saw, Tom, was that the vast majority of Americans, their money's going to credit cards, auto loans, and mortgages. And so we had a dream and a vision that we wanted to solve the retirement crisis before it happened. Most of the time, you know, retirees get to retirement and they realize that they haven't saved enough, or they're worried about running out of money, or they don't know how to claim their Social Security. Well, the problem that we saw was, let's help the 30 and 40-year-olds, and we learned a really expensive lesson. You know what we learned, Tom? We learned that 30 and 40-year-olds really don't think a lot about retirement because it's 3-4 decades away. And so as we tried to solve that problem, we ended up doing our very, very best to help that group, but it didn't work. And in fact, it was so devastating that when we shut that portion of our business down, we were negative $3.1 million in the hole. And you want to talk about dark days, Tom. That was a very dark day. And you know, we went to our attorneys and said, you know, what should we do? And they said, well, there's nothing else to do but declare bankruptcy. One of the key things for us, Tom, is our faith. And we took that to God and we said, okay, this seems like the only way out. And the answer surprised us. It came back. God said, no, I want you to pay every single penny of that back. And so he gave us a formula at the same time, Tom, and that formula was diligence, humility, and the prayer of faith. And so we did that, and after 2 years, we paid off that $3.1 million, or successfully settled every piece of that, and we didn't declare bankruptcy. But I will tell you this, that led us to the best thing that we do right now. And what that is that's helping retirees have confidence. And that's what we're going to talk about today. That is the foundation of the Boss Retirement Blueprint. BOSS is an acronym. You'll see the periods between our name. It stands for Build the Optimal System of Security for Retirement.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, Tyson, you've helped many clients across Utah, and I think you're up in Idaho and Washington and,
right,
and Oregon. What do you say are the 3 biggest strategies that have the biggest impact on people's retirements?
It's a great question, Tom. In fact, we talk about this in our book, The Boss Retirement Blueprint, quite a bit. The first one is taxes. And you know, most people would be surprised to know that if we're looking at minimizing taxes, it starts early. It starts before you retire. And we're at 40-year lows in taxes. So that's a big one. We want to keep as much money in people's pockets as possible by minimizing taxes, not only in their retirement accounts, but through their Social Security, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the show. Second, just mention Social Security. Social Security is really the foundation of everyone's retirement because everybody gets Social Security. But so many people are worried about, is Social Security going to be there? Is it going to be around when they retire? Absolutely it will be, but it's changing. And we want to talk a little bit about that today. And then lastly, the foundation for all of this is income. You know, it's so important to have income in retirement because if you don't, and you're 20, 30, 40 years unemployed once you stop getting paychecks from your job. And so you've got to have a solid income that you can plan on.
So Ryan, let's get back to this Boss Retirement Blueprint. How does it work and who's a good fit for it?
Great question. Well, like I mentioned, BOSS stands for Build the Optimal System of Security. And Leonardo da Vinci said this. He said, simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. When Tyson and I built this company, we wanted it to be simple. You know, most of the time when we talk with families, at barbecues, they like to talk about the hot stock or Bitcoin or whatever's really exciting at the time. But what we find in our conference rooms when we meet one-to-one with individuals just like you that are watching this show today is they want to know, where's my paycheck going to come in retirement? They want to know, am I going to run out of money in retirement? Because I don't want to be 85 years old, full of life and flat broke. And they want to know, how do I pay less in taxes. You know, I'm not really sure how this IRA or 401k that I have, how that's going to work. I know that I was able to put it in tax-free, and it's been growing tax deferred, but what's going to happen to my taxes? And so what we did, Tom, is we came up with a beautiful one-page solution. It's a one-page financial plan that covers all of the important aspects of retirement. How much money should you have in savings as an emergency fund? Then there's an income bucket that shows, here's, starting with Social Security, where's all of your income going to come from? We want to start with that foundation of maximizing Social Security. But we also want to have at least 2 other income streams, so you have a total of 3 income streams during retirement. The next bucket is your growth bucket, which is really a risk bucket. This is your investments. You know, what happens if the stock market goes down 30, 40, 50%? What's going to happen to my money? And then, as we've talked about, the big bucket, taxes. You know, how do we minimize the taxes on those IRAs, 401ks, your Social Security withdrawals, your required minimum distributions? And then the last one is the legacy bucket. Those 5 buckets help you create a plan for retirement. It's not about the individual investments. It's about having a plan and a strategy. If you're going to have confidence in retirement, Tom, as you know, it takes a plan. And the Boss Retirement Blueprint is one page that helps you see and have a vision of what your retirement looks like in all of those critical areas of retirement.
And I think what's so important about that, you know, Ernst & Young recently came out with a whole white paper where they talked about how if you have guarantees in the portfolio, you can actually take a little more risk. BlackRock came out with a white paper with the same thing, and so they work together. Now, Tyson, in the book you talk about income, that income's so important. Kind of go over, why is income so important in retirement?
Yeah, going back to our first days in our career when we were in real estate, it was location, right? And in the retirement space, it is, as you mentioned, income. And you mentioned we are in the West. Water is one of the most important resources in the West. If farmers don't have water going to their crops, well, there's nothing for them to be able to build a crop around. And you've got all these tributaries coming down the mountain in the spring, and then they dry up, and there's only a few rivers that continue into the reservoirs. And so when we build our blueprint for income, we want people to have at least 3 different sources of income, because something may dry up over 20, 30, 40 years of receiving it. And you talked about guaranteed income. You know, annuities are a great place to look at guaranteed income. Sometimes life insurance can be a great place. There's a lot of different places we can look at, and we look at it through the Boss Retirement Blueprint based off of what people's risk profile looks like, how long their longevity is. In fact, you've mentioned, you know, you and I and Ryan have talked about many times, longevity is the most important factor in somebody's retirement life. If somebody's going to live 30, 40 years in retirement, as Ryan mentioned, you don't want to be 85 years old, full of life and flat broke. You want to make sure that you've got multiple streams. So that means Social Security is the foundation. If you've got a pension, which not very many people do, that's another great source. And then we've got to take your 401ks, your IRAs, your other sources that you've built, and start creating income streams around those as well, so that people can have guaranteed income for life that they can never outlive. And so it really does become a really important piece of somebody's blueprint.
And Ryan, you know, Social Security is the largest annuity that most people have. It's a guaranteed paycheck for life. I think it's a very foundational part of the retirement plan, and that's what's in this blueprint that you talk about. Why is Social Security so important?
Well, here's the problem. It's complicated and confusing. There's over 2,728 rules in this Social Security handbook. And so, Tom, we like to say, this is not a do-it-yourself project. You know, it may be great to do a backyard project or maybe a home improvement project during retirement, but don't make Social Security decisions a do-it-yourself project. And here's why. Forbes did a study, and they said 96% of Americans will leave an average of $111,000 on the table when it comes to just Social Security. So, you know, Tom, we've been doing this a long time now. And, you know, the majority of Americans, if you look at the median 401k balance at age 65, the median balance is less than 100,000. So we're talking for the median group, by just how and when you take Social Security, really optimizing that. And so that's one thing. The other thing is so many people, they use rules of thumb when it comes to Social Security, Tom. This is the way my coworker did it, so this is what I'm going to take. Or you hear these two camps. Start Social Security at age 62 because it's going to be the smallest check, but it's going to be the longest check. Or you've got the other group that says, hey, scrimp and save as long as you can. Live off your 401k or IRA withdrawals until you get to age 70, then take your Social Security because that's going to be the biggest check. Well, the problem with that is you flip it on at 70 and hope you live a really long time, or you don't make it to 70. And so, when you look at Social Security, this is one of the areas that you absolutely have to have a plan for, or else you'll be part of that 96% of Americans. We like to say at Boss Retirement Solutions and Advisors, be part of the 4% that takes it right. We've been fortunate enough, as we've been talking about this for a long time, we don't make a dime off of Social Security. And that's why a lot of advisors out there do not talk about Social Security. But what we do is we do a customized analysis that'll tell you how and when to take it, what's your break-even point on Social Security, what's going to be the best way to optimize that benefit with all of the other income sources. If you have a pension, like Tyson mentioned, less than 20% of Americans have a pension today, but if you're fortunate enough, how do you combine those two income streams together? Maybe have some real estate, maybe have some annuity income. How are we going to combine those sources together to optimize that? And when it comes to Social Security, we want to make sure that you're able to wring every single nickel out of that because you've been paying into it since the very first paycheck that you ever received as a kid, Tom.
Yeah, I think Social Security maximization is a big deal, and I spend a lot of time trying to help train people and even train financial advisors on it. And sometimes it's best for the lower earning spouse to claim early, but let the higher earning spouse delay. And so I do think it's not a do-it-yourself project. And I've heard numerous cases where people go to the Social Security Administration, talk to somebody and get the wrong answer. So, I follow Mary Beth Franklin. She's very smart on Social Security. And then the software that you use to help show people how to maximize and optimize. Tyson, taxes are another big thing. We talked about it briefly, but why are taxes so important to plan for in retirement?
Here's what's crazy is most people, we do public workshops every week where we're talking to people about the topic of taxes. And a lot of times as I'm speaking, I'll say, what do you think the biggest expense in retirement is going to be? And somebody will invariably raise their hand and say, a mortgage. Somebody else will raise their hand and say, no, I think it's healthcare or long-term care. When in reality, they're shocked to find out that it's actually taxes. And it's because the federal government wants to be your partner in your IRA, your 401k. And they've set up these rules to help you as you grow your nest egg in those types of accounts, in those retirement accounts, so that, as you're 30 years old, 40 years old, you're setting money away in a 401k, you have the opportunity to take a tax break. But what people don't realize is that then they partner on it when you start taking it out with required minimum distributions. And so many advisors are telling people they just keep kicking the can down the road. Let's not worry about taxes until required minimum distributions. Take your pension, take your 401 or take your Social Security, do those types of things, wait on that IRA, wait on that 401k. And what ends up happening is when you get to the age of required minimum distributions, you lose control over all of your taxes. So we do things a little bit differently at Boss Retirement Solutions and Advisors. We actually do planning as part of the process to help them, and in many cases save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes by avoiding required minimum distributions down the road by doing it up front, being able to put it into a Roth IRA or into a properly structured life insurance policy. It depends on what we're doing with the client, how old they are, all of those types of things. We help them as we go through the process. But what it does is it gives people safety and security while taxes are low, because you mentioned $34 trillion in debt. Do you think taxes are going to be lower in 10, 20, 30 years when somebody is retired? No, they're going to have to go higher to compensate for all of the national debt, plus all the other things that they're underfunded right now, like Medicare and so many other things that the government has promised to the American people. So we want to help people to create their own personal economy so they don't have to worry about what's going on in Washington, D.C. They can control their taxes in the here and now.
Yeah, I've converted almost all of my IRAs and 401ks to Roth. I've been moving more of my personal wealth to cash value life insurance because I see taxes are going to have to go up a lot. People have no idea. And I think they're going to be very disappointed if the majority of their money is in IRAs and 401ks. They're going to be very, very disappointed because they have a partner. They don't understand this. I was playing golf with a guy. He said, I got $1 million in my 401k. I said, great. I said, how much of that is yours? He said, it's all mine. I said, no, you have a partner and you're the limited partner. The government's the general partner. They get to take their cut first. And the problem is you have no idea of what they're going to take. Now, how early should somebody start planning this tax planning? Like, how early should you just start looking at that?
You know, we talk to people all the time that it ought to be in their early 50s, and as they get closer to retirement, even before if we're doing some type of life insurance. But we really need to take a look at it now because of what we talked about, which we're at 40-year lows in taxes. And so we've got this window of opportunity to help people to move that money into one of these different types of an accounts like a Roth or life insurance to help them to pay less in taxes so that they don't have to worry about taxes ever again in the future.
Now, that Ernst & Young survey said the optimal retirement plan had like 30% cash value life insurance, 30% income annuities, and 40% investments. So let's talk investments. You know, you need to keep growing that nest egg, but different investments have different levels of risks. Where do you fall in this investment, on the investment side of the game?
Well, we want your investments to be boring so that your retirement can be interesting. And that mix that you just mentioned right there, 30, 30, and 40. You know, most times people think it's going to be a stock bond portfolio of a 60-40 mix. Well, we want contractual guarantees. That's when it comes to income, think of Social Security. That is a contractual guarantee that is a big annuity, is really what that is from Social Security. Well, how many people would turn away their Social Security? Nobody. They've been paying into it for a long, long time. But then when it comes to investments, here's the challenge, is everyone ignores risk. And if you're watching this today and you remember 2000, early 2000, 2001, and you remember 2007, 2008, and then you forget, right? You forget that all of a sudden this stock market's been going up for a really, really long time, and we had, the COVID dip, and then we had 2022, but then all of a sudden we have this record 2023, and everyone's thinking, oh, it's all going to be good. Well, what happens, Tom, if you are 65 years old, you walk out the door, and you have $1 million and the stock market goes down 50%. All of a sudden your million goes from 1 million to 500,000. I will tell you this, that risk is not going to feel very good. We like to have you sleep well at night. If you're going to build the optimal system of security for retirement, your investment strategy comes down to risk. Now, when I said at the very beginning, we want your investments to be boring so that your retirement can be interesting. Most people do it opposite, and that's where the mistake is made. And there's a principle called sequence of returns risk, and that risk is you can't control when you retire what the stock market's going to do. Well, so many people are just going, and they're gambling. That's not the way to enjoy retirement. If you want to do, go travel and go see the kids and grandkids and be able to do the things, anything and everything that you've wanted to do in retirement. What we recommend is that you have a plan that you know where the risk is going to be. And then you simply say, how do I eliminate risks? One of the key principles of any risk management is insure away the risk. Well, if we take income annuities and you say this 30% that you talked about in the study there, if I know that that is going to provide a guaranteed paycheck for the rest of my life, and no matter how long I live, that's the way to insure against longevity. If I want to protect myself against taxes and I want to protect myself against death, I'm going to use insurance as a way to do that. I mean, you take these combos together. We call it the super stack, Tom. We love to stack concepts and bring those together. And when you look at this from a risk standpoint, the smartest people in the world when it comes to money management, you'll often find them in the insurance companies. They're making promises and guarantees for somebody for a really long time, either insuring their death or insuring their longevity in the form of annuity. And everyone talks about paying really expensive, high-paid money managers to try to get them the highest rate of return. Well, how about being able to bundle that together in the insurance world with annuities or with life insurance, and being able to take advantage of the best money managers in the world at a very, very low cost. This is smart. Everyone talks about index funds and how you can get index fund returns at a really, really low cost, right? The S&P 500 is an index, for example. Well, what many people miss is you can get excellent money management through the insurance companies at a very, very low cost. And here's one of the things that we do for our families is we do a risk measurement. We call it the Boss Retirement Risk Report. We can take your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, and we can test those. And we can say, one of the questions we ask, it's the terrible questions, but we have to ask it as a fiduciary is, Tom, how much of your money are you okay losing? And we've done this thousands and thousands of times, and I have never heard anyone say, well, Ryan, I'd like to lose 50%. Not one time, but yet people did it in 2001. They did it in 2008, and there will be another time again here in the future where there will be a 30, 40, 50% decline. And what's great about technology today is we can measure that. The Boss Retirement Risk Report takes your portfolio and we can see and stress test that. What would happen if the market went down this percentage? What would happen if we have a black swan event? And then we can look at that. And if you're not okay with it, what should you do? Fix it. Fix that risk. This is what helps you sleep well at night in retirement is you have a plan and a strategy and not hope. Hope is not a financial strategy, Tom.
And I think it's so important to stress that you're a fiduciary. I mean, you're both fiduciaries. You have to do what's in your client's best interest. Why is it so important for retirees to work with somebody who's a fiduciary?
Tom, it's really crazy. So many people want a fiduciary. And what is a fiduciary? First and foremost, it's somebody who always has your best interest at heart. In fact, we're licensed that way. And to me, it seems crazy in the financial services industry that not everybody is asked to be a fiduciary. There's some legislation out there talking about it, but it hasn't happened yet. And you'd be surprised to know that only about 20% of us are fiduciaries. And so again, going into a public speaking event, I'll ask somebody, what's a fiduciary? And they'll talk about that, well, we get our best interest at heart. And then I ask, how many people don't want to talk to a fiduciary? And of course, everybody has their hand down because the reality is everybody wants it. And yet, so few financial services firms and individuals have the opportunity to actually be a fiduciary. And so it's one of these things that when we started the business, we wanted all of our advisors to have to be a fiduciary, to always put somebody's best interest first. And so it's something we're pretty proud of.
I've dug into this fiduciary thing a little bit because the DOL is going to be pushing some more things as well. And what I've found is that there are really two types of fiduciaries. There are investment fiduciaries, and then there are retirement fiduciaries. And the investment fiduciaries, they only worry about the fees and the performance. They don't worry about people's risk. They don't talk risk. They don't talk liabilities. They just focus on getting the most upside performance. And I would say if you're retirement, you really want to work with a retirement fiduciary, somebody who's focused on all the tools in the toolbox. It doesn't say, well, I'm not going to do annuities, or I'm not going to use life insurance, or I'm not going to protect against long-term care. No, I think that's a big mistake. If they deal with somebody who does not protect against those risks, I think that's a huge risk in itself. Now, I think we all agree that people should use a financial professional, that this is not, retirement is not a do-it-yourself project. So, Ryan, what should they be looking for in a financial advisor or financial professional?
Well, I think the first thing that we just talked about, look for a fiduciary. And the second thing is look for somebody who has information on what their strategy is up front. Oftentimes you don't understand what that advisor is going to do for you until you get put into an insurance product, or it's all in the stock market. That's the reason why we published our book. Our book is 25 years worth of experience. The Boss Retirement Blueprint, your guide to a secure and independent retirement, is simply our philosophy and strategy in a book that you can read in an hour and a half. What I find is if you can just simply take a look at what that strategy is and find out if there's alignment there between those two. We're not a right fit for everybody. But what we do is a lot of people love us because we have it right out there in our book. You can see it, and you can get a copy of our book at the bossblueprintbook.com, and you can just go there and download it for free, and you can be able to have a complimentary copy there, and be able to to use that, Tom, to understand what we do. This next thing is you need to have a comprehensive plan. That's what the Boss Retirement Blueprint is. The Boss Retirement Blueprint is the one-page plan that'll help you get to and through retirement with confidence. It's going to cover all those areas. What should you have in a plan? You need to have an income plan as part of your retirement plan. You need to know your risk portion of your plan. That's going to be not only we've talked a lot about annuities, but there's also a lot of reasons why you should be in the stock market for long-term growth, to be able to beat inflation with that. Then you need to have a comprehensive tax plan and a strategy that you understand how am I going to convert my required minimum distributions, and how am I going to pay taxes, and how am I going to make sure that those withdrawals are done correctly. And then you need to have an estate plan. Make sure that the money goes to those that you love, and that's our legacy bucket in the Boss Retirement Blueprint. Instead of just going to Uncle Sam, go to those that you love, typically family or your favorite charities and causes that are important to you. That comprehensive plan, so just let me summarize that again. A fiduciary, you know what their strategies are because they've published it, just like our Boss Retirement Blueprint book. And then also have a comprehensive plan, which is the Boss Retirement Blueprint. If you bring those together with all of those elements, that is the way that you can go into retirement with confidence.
And I think it's so important to understand that what you're doing is based in math and science. Like these aren't your opinions. This is based on the research of the top PhDs all around the world. So how about if you just say one more time how they can get a copy of the book? You're offering a complimentary copy to anybody watching today?
bossblueprintbook.com. You can go there, you can download that complimentary copy, and within seconds you can have that and start reading what it is, our core philosophy and strategies of how we're going to help you with all of these retirement challenges.
Now this last fall I did a live event for you, and we're doing another set of them coming up. Yeah. If people want to find out more about that, or how do they get in touch with you, where would they go to find out more about those events?
You can go to bossretirement.com. It's a great place with a lot of resources. That's our main website that people can find out where we are, what we can do for them. They can set up a complimentary consultation. Any of the reports that we have talked about on today's show, like the Social Security analysis, the report that Ryan talked about, the tax analysis, the Boss Retirement Blueprint, all of that we want to do for you for absolutely free as a fiduciary.
That's awesome. People say that knowledge is power. That's not true. Applied knowledge is power. So if you don't do anything with what you've learned today, it's not going to do anything for you. I want to thank you two for attending today, and thank you all for watching Spotlight Television today.